Please bear with me as I lead this session. This is not necessarily my wheelhouse, but I'm happy to stand in the gap on his behalf in his absence. I'm going to put a quick plug that if you are interested in serving as a commission, as a chair of the commission, please let us know so we can have someone for Chair Peacock to tag team with. It's not a huge commitment, but it is a significant commitment with regards to the work that is being done. With that being said, it looks like we have reached quorum. The Commission on Out-of-School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes is called to order at 6:05 p.m. When it is time for public commentary, individuals, you can raise your hand if you would like to speak, or you can use the chat box to inform us that you would like to speak. One member of our team, the OST team, will unmute and notify individuals when they can speak for public commentary. If a commissioner or a speaker is unmuted for conversation, please put yourself on mute when not talking to reduce background noise and distractions. When making or seconding a motion, please identify yourself. All votes will be taken by roll call, and so this meeting is called to order. So now we're going to move on to public commentary. It is our understanding that there has been one registrant for public commentary from Parents Amplifying Voices in Education, PAVE, parent leader. My apologies if I don't pronounce your name correctly, Kina Lamons. In addition to some written testimonies from additional parent leaders who cannot testify in person, but do want to submit their testimony to the OST Commission in written form. If anyone else wishes to speak to the Commission, they should do so by using the chat box and stating that they would like to speak. Alex will then confirm if there are any additional Alex, if there are any individuals who want to speak in the chat box, please let us know. Do we have any others who registered in advance to speak beyond the one that I mentioned, Alex?
No, we do not. And I believe, just confirming. So Kiana had a last minute conflict, but it may be Keisha that is able to speak. Sorry.
Is it on her behalf or you're not?
I think Keisha is speaking in addition to the public commentary that Kiana had scheduled to announce.
Thank you so much for clarifying and letting us know that. Please also keep us abreast again of any public members that would like to speak in real time. So thank you guys for honoring the process for public commentary. Public speakers who are registered to speak in advance will be permitted to speak first. Any additional public members may raise their hand to speak or request to speak via the chat box to the Commission. Each speaker should provide their name and, if applicable, any affiliations. Each speaker will also be permitted to speak for up to 3 minutes. We have a very packed schedule today, so we want to be respectful of the time that we have together. So the first speaker, can you please repeat the name, Alex?
I have Keisha Clark from PAVE as well.
Keisha, are you here? If I don't hear from Keisha, is there anyone in the chat who wishes to speak? Okay. One last pulse check. Any public commentary, whether it is by raising your hand to speak or be it via the chat, as it looks like the person who registered to speak in advance is unable to attend. And if not, we will move on with our agenda to the announcement of quorum. Okay, now we will move on to the announcement of quorum. We're going to do a roll call for the attendance. For our commissioners, if 8 members or more present, we have reached our quorum. I'm going to call your names. Just let us know if you're present, etc. So let's go. Margot Berkey.
Present.
Thank you, Marcus Coates.
Present.
Thank you, Marcus. Tasharna Crump. Hillary, so Tasharna Crump. Oh,
Commissioner Crump is here.
Here.
sorry, my apologies. Thank you, Tasharna. Commissioner Desir.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Desir. Commissioner Hanson.
Present.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill.
Present.
Thank you, Commissioner Jenkins.
Present.
Thank you, Commissioner Jordan. I don't think she's here. Commissioner Peacock is not here for today. Commissioner Peeler.
Present.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Peeler. Commissioner Dr. Safran.
I'm here.
Thank you, Commissioner Siegel. Commissioner Siegel, are you here?
I'm here.
Thank you. And then Commissioner Taylor. Commissioner Taylor. Okay, so how many is that do we have so far? We have the Katrina. I know it's more than
That's,
8.
that's 10. There's
Okay.
10 commissioners on the call.
Thank you so much. So we do have quorum. Thank you all for participating in that process. Now we are going to vote to approve the agenda, and it will be taken in roll call style again. So please bear with me as we go through the process to get us to the meat of the meeting today. Commissioners, you're being asked to hopefully have reviewed the agenda in advance, and now we are looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
This is Commissioner Berkey. Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Berkey. Any seconds?
This is Commissioner Siegel, second.
Thank you so much. So we do have first and second motions. Any discussions on the agenda? If there are no discussions, the vote will be taken again in roll call style. For commissioners that are able to, any commissioner that is unable to unmute, you should enter your vote, your vote in the chat box to all participants. As I call your name, if you approve the agenda, please say approve. Those who oppose, please say oppose. Those who abstain, please say abstain. Commissioner Berkey?
Approve.
Commissioner Coates, thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner Coates. Commissioner Crump?
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Desir?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanson?
Just for
Approve.
clarification.
Thank you. Commissioner Hill?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Jenkins?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Jordan is not here from my understanding. Neither is Commissioner Peacock. Commissioner Peeler?
Approved.
Commissioner Dr. Safran?
Approve.
Commissioner Siegel?
Approve.
And Commissioner Taylor? Commissioner Taylor? Katrina, how many do we have approving?
We have all the commissioners approving. I don't think Commissioner Taylor's on the call.
So that's 10 total, correct?
Yeah, correct.
The motion carries with 10 approving the agenda. Thank you guys for engaging in that process. Now we're going to move to a vote to approve the minutes. This will also be taken in roll call style. A draft version of the January 26th meeting should have been provided. Are there any changes or revisions to the minutes? Barring any change. Was that someone speaking? Okay. Barring any changes, we are asking now for a motion to approve the minutes. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I motion that this is Commissioner Safran. I motion that we approve the minutes.
Thank you so much. A second, please.
This is Commissioner
This is
Hill.
Commissioner Hanson, I second.
Okay, we're gonna go with Commissioner Hanson. Sorry, my apologies, Commissioner Hill. So thank you, Commissioner Hanson, for seconding. So we have, is it Dr. Safran and then Commissioner Hanson, who have motion to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion on the minutes? We will now take a vote, roll call style, as I call your name again. If you approve the minutes, please say approve. If you oppose, please say oppose. If you abstain, please say abstain. Commissioner Berkey?
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Coates?
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Crump? Commissioner Crump?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Desir?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanson?
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Hill?
approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Jenkins?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Jordan is not here, nor is Peacock. Commissioner Peeler?
Approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Safran.
Approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Siegel.
Approve.
Commissioner Taylor. Thank you, Commissioner Siegel. Okay, so the motion carries again with everyone on the call approving the minutes for today's meeting. With that said, we will now turn it over to the OST office for some really exciting updates coming out of OST. I will now hand the floor over to my team, starting us off with Kevin. Kevin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Lowe. Hello, everyone. Good evening. A couple of updates from the Institute for Youth Development. As of Q2 now, and in leaning into fiscal 23, the Institute has hosted 42 events, achieving 42% of our overall goal for the fiscal year. And we have served 390 unduplicated attendees, which achieves a 46% goal. We're definitely well on mark to meet and hopefully exceed that goal for this fiscal year. We are currently in the midst in conducting program site visits for fiscal 23. A lot of site visits coming up, but we're on track. We're moving forward in regards to accomplishing those before the end of the school year. And our quality cohort is moving along very nicely. Currently, those participating within the quality cohort are conducting their self-assessments. And at the same time, our Institute team who are certified are also conducting external assessments. And both the self-assessment and the external assessment are due and will be inputted into the Weichart Scores Reporter database no later than April 14th. And on April 27th, we will be hosting the Planning with Data workshop, which will go over the scores. And then we'll begin working with those programs that are in the quality cohort to begin developing their program improvement plans. So those are some of the highlights from our past commission meeting from the Institute for Youth Development, and happy to answer any questions. Great, thank you. I believe am I passing it to Alex Brown next? Yes, I am. Alex?
All right, good afternoon. Biggest thing for us, or as a communications department of one, the biggest thing is Summer in the City is upcoming. As we know, it's Saturday, March 25th. And so the OST office is definitely hosting Summer in the City from 11 to 2 at Elliott Hines Middle School. After the event, at the event, we're going to have a one-pager that includes all the different vendors and providers that are there, as well as a brief program description that is offered of the program or the service that is being offered. But after the conclusion of the event, we will be looking to compile an actual living document that contains more information, not only about those organizations that were present at Summer in the City, but also additional information regarding other agencies or other organizations that are providing additional support, so resources available for district school-age youth during the summer months. So that's the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things. We are currently I think we currently have approximately 250 registrants for Saturday, and we do, just so everybody knows and isn't aware, we do also have a rain contingency plan in the event that there is rain coming on Saturday as well. So we are trying to, we are extremely excited about the event, and we are extremely, I think, well prepared as well. Moving forward, moving along, as we continue to amplify Learn 24 and the OST office, we have been able to identify at least 35 organizations that either boast the Learn 24 logo or corresponding information on their website. So it might not necessarily have a place for Learn 24, the logo, but it might actually have a space and a place for that they receive, they are a supporter or a partner, or a partner or a supporter of the OST office or the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Education. So that is the distinguishing factor, and why sometimes it might not say they boast the Learn 24 logo. And then just a quick follow up in regards to Commissioner Siegel's request at our last commission meeting. I can send you the logo, Commissioner Coates. But at our last meeting, we discussed the tax checkoff, and it was just a question in regards to how much money has been received in the previous years. So in fiscal year 2019, the amount that was received was $117,852. In fiscal year 20, that amount went to $156,928. And then in fiscal year 21, that amount was $179,860 as well. And of course, being as though fiscal year 2022 has not yet concluded, we do not have that exact number as to where we stand to date. We do typically reach out or receive information from the OCFO that provides us updates. And so when we do get those numbers, we will definitely provide that to the commission as well. And before I pass it, let me just skip to, oh, no, it's not there. All right. So I did provide and I also, sorry, I'm skipping through the document. And I also did follow up with Commissioner Berkey's request as well for just a quick graphic that underscores the average cost per child. The average cost per child as it relates to how much a 5-week program, or how much it costs for a child to go to a 5-week program. So just give me one. No, as a matter of fact, I'll pass it to Gaurav, and before we finish, if that's okay, I'll come back and I'll show the graphic. That way we can continue with the slide and continue with the presentation. But if there are any questions for me, I'm open to answering any questions before I yield the floor to Gaurav.
So really quickly, Alex, you put up the wrong deck. This is not a deck that was sent. So if you don't mind just looking at the email that was sent, this is not the deck that I emailed.
All right, give me 1 second. All right. This one that says.
Bear with us, and it's okay. We can troubleshoot really, really quickly on this. Let's see. Here.
And so the number of exhibitors that are currently slated is 50 exhibitors. And just completely honest and completely transparent, we do expect some people might drop off as it relates to whatever challenges that they might occur on Saturday, but we do have 50 exhibitors scheduled. All right, and then can you guys see the graphic now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, no, yes.
Yeah, I know. I just zoomed right past it. Sorry. All right, and so just so So the elementary school cost, and this is based off of the Wallace Foundation's, the Wallace Foundation actually has an out of school time calculator. And so what I did was input the staff to the youth to staff ratio is going to be in between 11 youth to one staff member. And then this is also in the event that they are 60 youth within the program. And then this is for elementary school. The breakdown, each one has the same breakdown, but this is for elementary school. And so elementary school, the estimated cost for elementary school, well, at least the median is $164 per child, $164.47 per child for 5 weeks. And that's the annual cost for a 5-week program. The middle school, with the same exact portfolio, 11 to 1 or 15 to 1 staff ratio with 60 youth. The median is $313.54. And then as we move to high school, the actual the median range again is $347.89, and that's still inclusive of 11 to 1 to 15 to 1 ratio with 60 kids. And these are for community-based organizations. It's not so they also have the opportunity to plug in how much it would cost for a school. But I just did community-based organizations. And so those are the numbers. They do have a high range as well as a low range. So for high schoolers, the high range would be $561. And then the low range would be $240 is the estimated cost. For middle school, the high range would be it's the same exact, it's $313.54, and then the low range is $214.71. And then for elementary school, the high range is $215.73, with the low range being $103.84.
Thank you, Alex. I think that helps give us sense of how how funding is needed and for summer programs.
Welcome. Thank you for the question and the suggestion. So,
Alice, we're going to go back to slide 10 because we skipped over data.
And with that, I'll pass it to you, Gaurav, unless there are any additional questions for me.
What is that again?
Being as though there are no questions, and I do hear somebody, if you're not speaking, can you just please feel free to mute yourself, and that way we can minimize the background noise. But with that, I'll pass it to you, Gaurav.
Thank you, Alex, and good evening, commissioners. So we've been pretty hard at work, or I've been pretty hard at work with the data team. So we're currently working on building our RFA system within CitySpan itself. And the eventual plan is to have all of the grant management operations from the RFA through managing the grant, including, for example, taking in invoices, will all be included within CitySpan. And they are currently on track to have the RFA system up and running within CitySpan in time for the school year 23-24 grant applications, which we're hoping to open up in May. And since the last meeting, there's been pretty significant progress in specifically building out a sort of data dictionary documenting all of our grant operations. And they're currently developing that and should have a server up for us to test soon. And then the data analyst role still remains open. We've now reposted the position at a higher grade with the hopes of making the position more competitive and to attract more experienced applicants. And the application actually closed today on the 23rd, and we should be receiving the list of eligible candidates within the next week to begin the vetting process. I'll go ahead and pause for any questions.
If there are no questions, we can skip the slide. Go
I have
ahead.
a quick question.
Mhm.
I'm new to this group. My name is Bijan Verlin. I just started with Chairman Mendelson a couple weeks ago. But I was curious, and I know I'm supposed to just be observing, but if someone could define terms, it'd be really helpful. RFA system or CitySpan. It's the first time I'm hearing about them.
Sure, no problem at all. So the RFA is the request for application system, and it's essentially how we solicit applications for our grants. And
CitySpan is the database that currently holds all of our programming data. Well, most of our programming data. So actually, currently, the RFA system lives within Seamless Forms, which is our form management system. It's a separate website. And as a result, we've had to go through this process of pulling data from that system and then putting it into CitySpan, which holds information on the sites of programs, the enrollment and attendance in those programs. And what we're currently working on, which I provided an update on, is taking that RFA system from Seamless and integrating it into CitySpan, because they actually have that capability. We just need to build it with them. And so once that's done, the hope is that it'll be more efficient, because we can solicit applications directly through one website, which will be CitySpan. Let me know if that made sense.
I think I got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I'm just wondering whether, this is Commissioner Barkey, just wondering whether the whole idea of putting I guess even the invoicing, maybe I'm wrong, but all of that into CitySpan, will that work for you and for other for the partners in terms of getting reimbursements from the DC government procurement system? Will that streamline anything?
So I would say the hope is that it will, because currently the invoicing and sort of financial management system, I won't speak too much to it. It's not my specialty. So
Let me cover
okay.
it, Laura. So
Sure.
yes, ideally it will, because it will minimize the need for back and forth, because everything will be housed in one system where you can see communications, you can see submissions, you can communicate via the portal with your grantee to minimize the back and forth of this is incorrect, this is correct, etc. And so whereby anyone who is on the team, whether old or new, can literally go into to the portal and see where we are regarding a specific grantee's invoicing. So yes, the goal is, and the purpose of this kind of one-stop shop is to cut down on the back and forth and to make a more seamless invoicing process, which will then make it a lot faster for us to process payments once the invoice has been approved.
I think that would be greatly appreciated. So that's good news. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, seeing as there are none, I believe we'll move to slide 12, and I'll pass it to Shanna for grant updates.
Good evening, commissioners. It is such a pleasure to be here with you all this evening. This is my first commission meeting, and since I have come on as the new supervisory grant management specialist, I'm happy to report that we have also increased our number of grant management specialists. We have 4 in-house grant management specialists, in addition to myself, filling a role that Katrina Evans was, holding up an onus job herself in months past, along with the support of Dr. Lowe. So we are happy to be fully staffed on the grant management team. The grant management team is in the process of completing administrative compliancy checks of 126 existing out-of-school time grantees. It's one of the first tools I rolled out, was just an efficient means of checking all of the compliancy issues by engaging with our grant partners and then providing the support that they needed to help them quickly and effectively become compliant. In addition, we have issued award letters for our Summer Strong DC grants. We have sent award letters for 44 grantees totaling $3.6 million, over $3.6 million. That includes 33 Summer Strong applicants, 8 small nonprofit applicants, and 3 coordinating entity applicants for the summer programming. We just closed yesterday the subcontractor RFA, which is an opportunity for small organizations, vendors to work with our coordinating entities. And so those will be distributed to our 3 coordinating entity grantees so that they can make selections from those vendors to utilize over summer programming. And then we are in the process of opening a special SPSB, Safe Passage,
Shanna,
Safe Blocks
I'll cover that
competition.
one. I'll cover that one.
Yes,
Thank
and
you.
so I will hand that over to Dr. Lowe.
Thank
Are
you,
there any
Shanna.
questions? Do we want to take questions on the initial, or should do you want to go ahead, Dr. Lowe?
I'll go ahead first. So
Okay.
Thank you, Shanna. So we are having a special competition for Safe Passage, Safe Blocks. We had to close out one of our grantees, and now we are working quickly to get that priority area filled. But we have a special competition. We did make sure we did all the necessary checks and balances to be able to run this competition to cover the area that needs to be covered. Now, we will close out one grantee at the end of the month, and hopefully our goal is to begin the other grantee so that there is no loss in coverage at the beginning of / early April. So those are the grant updates. Are there any questions for the grants team or myself?
Yeah, I do have it, Commissioner Hill. Thank you so much for those updates. And again, welcome aboard. Now, with regard to the SPSB, are you able to disclose the organization that you're closing out? The name of the organization?
Hillary, what do you think? Is it public knowledge? Commissioner Desir, sorry, let me not.
Hi,
Because she's a
everyone.
colleague.
There's been a level of communication to schools, and there's been a level of communication to council members, particularly Zachary Parker's office and Tryon White's office.
Okay, so the organization is YAMI.
Okay, so is there, okay, just trying to get an understanding, because I know there's a lot of issues going on in the communities now, and obviously there are reasons why you're no longer going forward with that original organization and making some changes now. So the funding dollar, just so I'm clear, and I think that you've explained, I just want to make sure, probably answer my own question here. Those dollars that you were giving YAMI, you'll be giving to the new organization who will provide those services in those particular areas.
Yes, and we are running a competition now to make sure it is as fair a process as possible, and they will be taking over those areas for Safe Passage.
Okay, so are we also talking about any of the budget cuts that are here on the fiscal 2023 summer for Summer Strong and small nonprofits and the coordinating entities? Is this the space now to answer questions about those cuts?
What cuts are you referring to?
I know on the original application, for example, with the coordinating entity, it was proposed $400,000. And I don't know if we're able to discuss this because maybe it's been embargoed. So I don't know, based on some information that came out on yesterday.
So what I'll say, Commissioner Hill, is you're correct. It is embargoed until the mayor makes that announcement, but we can certainly have that conversation once it is made public.
Okay, another question, and this should be public. I was unaware, and I was told by some of my colleagues that there would be some cutting with the DCPS as well as Department of Human Resources. Department of Human Resources, yes. And just trying to get a feel from your office, are you expecting more cuts coming forward in this year? And is that valid in terms of what's coming out of the mayor's office, or what I'm hearing from other colleagues that these cuts, and again, we're not digging into that partial of cuts that we see through the embargo, but do you expect additional cuts for OST grantees?
So I'll share more on that when it's my turn to speak, but the short answer is we do not anticipate any cuts, but we just never know until the budget becomes final.
Thank you. Appreciate you. That's very helpful.
Any other questions before we move on to the next bucket of work coming out of the OST office? Thank you, Shanna, for presenting. Timothy, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Here's just the layout of the competitions and the award budgets that we have and how much has been invoiced, has been paid out, and how much each competition has. So each category you'll see the competition. The next column, you'll see the award amount for each competition. Next column is the total that has been invoiced towards that competition. You'll have the number of orgs requesting 60% of their disbursement. We have reached out to just about everyone that hasn't submitted their first disbursement, and we're working with those grantees to get that, to ensure that we get those invoices in so we can get their disbursements out in a timely fashion. And also the last column, you'll have the how much has been paid out from those that have been invoiced, and that this number is as of, I'm going to say, Tuesday. We have a number that are in the system now that we are working through and getting those invoiced out. So those numbers should go up. And the remaining balance is the remaining balance we have to spend of the FY23 allocation for each competition. Are there any questions?
Before the questions, I want to give some quick context. You will notice that under the column that says total invoiced, there are 3 that have a dash, which means that they have not invoices yet. And there are reasons for that. So number 1, for example, the mentorship program, they are, I'm trying not to confuse them in my head. For the mentorship program, they are still doing some some award meetings before they can begin the invoicing process. For the youth scholarship, they just executed their grant agreement, signed their grant agreement, and they're rolling out their application process at somewhere in the city on Saturday. So they are going to be invoicing very shortly. And then with students in the care of DC, they do have some insurance requisites that have not been met as yet. And once those have been met and approved, then we can roll out their agreement. And all 3 of them are for FY23. So they're for services up until September 30, 2023. I'll defer now to any questions.
Dr. Lowe, this is Commissioner Siegel. All I have on my screen is the heading OST Communications. I somehow am missing the rest of these tables and would appreciate if you can figure out what's going on or just email it all to me at the end of the meeting, because I'd really like to see these numbers and I can't get anything to move forward.
Thank you. We'll make sure that you get it in your inbox.
Thank you.
Any other
Commissioner
questions?
Siegel, I just wanted to say that you might have a bar that says sync to presenter. If you have that visible and you click on that, then it'll bring you to the slide that we're on.
Aha, whoever suggested that, bless you and thank you.
No problem.
As Alex will tell you, Teams and I are not friends, so.
If there are no other questions, we'll move on to the next slide, which should be me, right? Okay, so a couple of things. Number 1, I want to quickly have my new team members introduce themselves. Let's say your name and your role with the OST office. We have new OST members inclusive of Shanna, Shania, Brianna, Mark. I think those are the only ones that I knew. My apologies if I'm missing anyone. Can you just quickly come off mute, say your name and your role so that the commissioners can see who is on the OST team?
Hello again. Oh, sorry. Once again, my name is Shanna and I am the Supervisory Grant Management Specialist, and I will hand it to Brianna.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brianna. Recently onboarded as a grant management specialist, and glad to be working with you all. I'll pass it off to Shania.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shania Mitchell. I am also a grants management specialist, and I look forward to working with you all. I'm going to pass it over to Mark.
Thank you, Shania. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Mark Weimerger. I'm very excited to be a new grants management specialist. almost 2 months. I'm very excited to serve the district and to work with everyone here tonight, and I look forward to learning from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That should be all of our new members. Did I miss anyone? Thank you. As Gaurav stated, the data analyst, the data analyst role remains open. It closed today, and hopefully we can have some viable candidates to choose from, so we can have a fully staffed OST team. Next slide, Alex. So quick updates. Again, Summer in the City is this Saturday. Come all to Summer in the City. It is a chance for our families and community members to get to stay abreast of what is going on for the summer for all of our children and youth across the district. We have about 40 tablers, so we anticipate community members, if you can, wear your OST swag. Our team will be there deep. And so we welcome you all to the event this Saturday from 11 to 2 at Aldean High Middle School. Next, Alex. Okay, so someone, I think it was Commissioner Hill that mentioned earlier the budget season and what the mayor has proposed. Right now, we do not anticipate, knock on wood, any cuts to the OST's budget. She did present in her budget an additional $5 million for the OST office to support the after-school equivalent of My School DC. It being dubbed right now, and the name is not finalized, as My After School DC, where we can guarantee access to quality after-school programs in DCPS and DC public charter schools. We will start with our neighborhood schools as a part of a larger OST vision for our office of having after school for all of our kids, regardless of economics, ability, language, etc. The rollout will include additional grant-making opportunities for us as an office to fill programmatic gaps across the city. And it's also for us to have families have easy access to choice via a My After School portal system, and also to make sure we have quality assurance that what we are listing in the portal for our families are programs that are high quality and that the parents can trust will take good care of their kids by way of OST programs. With that said, 1 second. Move to the next slide, Alex. So with that proposal that was shared for the mayor's budget, the additional $5 million will look like this. 3.1 will be allocated towards grant competitions. 1.8 will be allocated towards, just over 1.8 will be allocated towards building up our team, because we will need more staff to make this happen. If we have more grant competitions, we need more staff to make it a sustainable and efficient effort. And so we will build out the My After School DC hub, modeled after My School DC. We will also make sure that there's quality assurance, so building up Kevin's team and further standardizing our evaluation and rating process for after-school programs. Again, OST expansion will be required to make sure we are sustainable and efficient. And this investment is really a deposit or a down payment on guaranteeing access to quality programs, quality after-school programs, starting first with our elementary schools and with the goal and vision of us hopefully expanding for years to come. With this expansion, we anticipate a minimum 1,000 additional youth being served, with priority being given to those who have special needs, inclusive of children and youth with disabilities. Are there any questions before I hand it over to the DC Policy Center to summarize for us the needs assessment summary? Any questions? Oh, please, can I just say one more thing? Sorry. Alex, please drop the link in the chat for people to register to be an advocate for this additional funds in our budget. So if anyone you know is in support of us receiving additional funding and not cutting our budget, this would be a huge win for OST. Please have them register to testify for the budget hearings. Alice will put the link in the chat for people to register. Share the link to all stakeholders, TBOs, parents, families, etc., so they can really stand in the gap and advocate for this additional $5 million remaining in the mayor's budget. So please, please, please share far and wide for people to register to testify in support of us receiving more funding, because it will result in an expansion of our services, an expansion of our grants, and an expansion of our ability to make sure that all of our kids across the district have access to high quality programs. Okay, now I can pause. Questions?
Dr. Lowe, I just wondered if there was any sort of approach being considered to the identification of what establishes an elementary school as a priority. Like, how will certain schools be prioritized is my question.
The schools specifically within elementary schools?
Yes, I mean, it sounds like this is a great investment in expanding capacity and expanding programming to schools that are identified. It says in the first line, it says in priority elementary schools. And I just don't know what are the criteria, or is that in development, like what the criteria are to determine what is a priority school over another one that is a lower priority?
Absolutely. That is something that myself, Shanna, and her team, us as an office, will be working on to determine, okay, what are going to be the metrics or the criteria, who we're going to give priority over others. In our perfect world, it will be all elementary schools, and then all middle schools, and then all high schools, and then all early childhood. But yes, well, no, sorry, there's no criteria established as yet. That is in the developmental stage at this point.
Great. If there's any opportunity to collaborate on that process, that would be something I'd be very interested in.
And just for context, Shanna, she is with sorry, Commissioner
Berkey is with DC
DCPS.
Public Schools.
Yes. Yeah. So earmark that name, please. Any other questions before I hand over to the DC Policy Center? So please advocate, testify. We want to keep, as Commissioner Hill mentioned, there have been significant cuts in other departments, and so far, knock on wood, OST has preserved our current funding and have gotten additional funding prospectively in the mayor's budget, which is a win for our office and a win for our kids and our families across the district. So testify, sign up, have your families, community members, CBOs, etc., kind of drive home the point that this needs to stay in the budget. With that said, I'm going to hand it over to Amelia from the DC Policy Center to really give a quick summary of the needs assessment. We do plan on having a public-facing event to discuss the findings, so please be on the lookout for communications regarding that in the coming weeks as we kind of close out the chapter of the needs assessment. Amelia, the floor is yours. You can do, if you have a presentation, Alex, you can close on, let her.
Well, thank you so much. Just to be mindful of time, what is the timing on how long I have right now?
15 to 20.
Okay, great. Just to make sure we're not going over too much. Well, thank you for having us here. Our needs assessment is completed, and so I'm going to give a brief presentation today of the summary of our findings, and then there will be, as Dr. Lowe said, a public-facing event in the future. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Excuse me. Okay. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
As yes. Okay, great. So just as a quick reminder, the goal of this report was to look at the current landscape of out-of-school time programs. We wanted to take stock of the existing programs in the city and whether or not those were meeting the needs of public school students, including DCPS and public charter schools. And our report focused on subsidized OST programs, which includes programs receiving federal local funds like Title I schools, programs run by or in non-Title I schools and public charter schools funded by school budgets, and also programs funded by community-based organizations who receive grant funding from the district. So in this report, we go through where the students are located by residents and where they go to school, where the programs are, citywide needs estimates, and then more granular needs estimates by ward and by much closer, like within a mile of each census block. We also had completed several surveys, so we have the results of our provider surveys, both characteristics and then common concerns from providers. And we had 2 parent surveys as well, one in English and one in Spanish, that were distributed by DC PAVE. And we have the results in there as well of the survey and the listening session we did with PAVE parents. And last, we have recommendations. So we're relying here on audited student level data for DME for the student level side, and then our survey data in addition to administrative data from different government agencies for the location of OST programs in the district. So going through, as you all know, there's about 90,000 public school students, about 70,000 elementary and middle schools, another 20,000 in high school. We divided this report, we grouped together elementary and middle school students and then high school students separately for our analysis. And as you all also know, most public school students do not attend their by right neighborhood school, which means that many people are traveling to different wards to go to school in the district. So there may be some policy decisions in there about where to place OST programs. For example, for after school in student schools and near schools may be more convenient, but for summer and after school programs, this might be a different distribution across the district as people live in different locations. So there is a lot of economic and racial segregation about where people live in DC. Of all the students, the plurality of students, about 45% lives in wards 7 and 8. This is also where the majority of non-white students live. And there are other pockets throughout the city. The most at-risk students live in Ward 8, the most English learners live in Ward 4, and the most special needs students live in Ward 8. And by where students go to school, that changes quite a bit, in particular because a lot of students from Ward 8 go to school in Ward 5. And in high school, the patterns look quite similar. Very interestingly, about half of the white high school students go to a single high school at Jackson Reed, which contributes to some of the segregation that happens in terms of schools. So looking at OST program capacity, there were 150 different OST providers offering almost 500 OST programs in DC that we were able to count. This is likely an undercount of the entire universe of OST programs because, again, we were focused on programs that were subsidized in different ways I've talked about before. So that doesn't include fully private programs. And we also likely missed some other pockets such as licensed child development centers that are run by OSSI. But looking at the seat capacity, seats were concentrated in after-school programming, especially for elementary and middle school students. There were about 30,000 students for elementary and middle school after school. And then for high school seats, there were 16,000, for summer seats, there were 16,000 summer seats for elementary middle school students and another 15,000 summer seats for high school students. Although that number is much lower if you don't count the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program. If we don't count those, then the high school summer seats are down to a little under 7,000. So looking at a few different ways to assess the need for OST seats in DC. One would be universal coverage, which would include all DCPS students and public charter school students. As discussed before, that's about 70,000 elementary and middle school students and another about 20,000 high school students. We also looked at broad income targeting, so children who are in households that are under 300% of the federal poverty level, all at-risk children and youth, and that's the funding definition of at-risk. So it's children who have experienced homelessness, are on SNAP or TANF, or are in high school and are at least one grade behind. And then narrow income targeting is our final metric, which is for children and youth that are living at or below the federal poverty level. So this is based on where students go to school, just looking at some coverage. Basically, these are coverage ratios. So, for example, if we were to look at seats that would cover all students under the federal poverty level, there would be 36% coverage of all those students in Ward 8, 27% in Ward 7, etc. So that's the way to read this. I'm going to move past this pretty quickly because we have some more interesting maps for you in a little bit, so no need to fret here. If you look across the city at what these need metrics mean, for universal coverage for after-school seats, we would need an additional 40,000 if we were to cover all students in elementary and middle school, and another like 13,000 after-school seats if we were to cover all high school students. These obviously get much smaller as we narrow down our focus. So at 300% of the federal poverty level, we would need an additional about 35,000 seats. If we were to cover all at-risk students for after-school students, we would need an additional 9,000 seats across the city. And if we were looking to cover all students that were at or below the federal poverty level, we actually have more seats than we have students that meet that definition for after school. And for summer, for high school, almost all of the coverage or the need estimates would be met for high school summer seats, and are generally high school after school seats were much lower than elementary and middle school. So the gaps for high school summer seats are much larger than for pre-K to 8. So looking at, this is a map based on where students actually live. It looks somewhat similar to the map of where they go to school. But instead of looking at coverage ratios, this is looking at gaps. So many of the largest gaps are in wards 7 and 8, and then 4 and 5. The interesting thing about these maps, I think, is that, and we'll dig into this at a larger presentation, but if you're just looking at total numbers of OST seats, the most seats are in wards 8, 7, 4, and 5, but that's also where you have the most students. So the gaps do look most drastic there, even though the most coverage is actually in those locations already. So looking at like coverage ratios for after school programs, if you're looking at where students live, we are covering over 50% in Ward 6, 1, and 2, and 5. And then coverage is a little lower in Wards 7 and 8, 3, which does not have a lot of students in it, and Ward 4. And if you're looking at where students go to school, things even out considerably, with about 50% coverage for elementary, middle school in every ward, except for Ward 3, which again has very few students in it. And for high school students, in some cases, we actually have more than 100% coverage in certain wards, particularly here in Ward 6. For summer, the maps look quite similar. In general, there are less summer seats than there are after school seats. So while the distribution is about the same, the coverage ratios in general are lower, except for high school summer seats, which are very high, again, because of the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program. In our report, we did a lot of pretty granular spatial-based analyses. So, for example, this is elementary and middle school students for after-school seats. And you can see that across the city, for every student, there was there were 38 OST seats within a quarter mile of the average student. And in general, seats were concentrated in wards 1 and 4. Those had generally more seats for your average student than in other wards. Here's a visual representation of this table. So you can see there's these hotspots in wards 1, 2, 4, and a little bit of 5. And again, coverage looks lower in wards 7 and 8, but a lot of that is just because there's more students in those wards. So the average number of seats per student is lower than in wards 1 and 2, where there are less students who live and go to school there. This is a different way of looking at it as well, that weights seats very highly if they are within half a mile or less, and then weights them less the further out they get, up to 2 miles. And if we look at things that way, things look a lot more evenly distributed across the city. And then looking at other categories of student seats, patterns look quite similar. So this is elementary and middle school seats for the summer. As you can see, there's a very big hotspot in Ward 4 and another little hotspot in Ward 7 and 1, with kind of medium coverage across many of the other wards. For high school students, this is high school after school. Again, there's hotspots in wards 1, 2, 4, and parts of 7 and 8. And the summer seats follow that distribution as well. So looking at providers who responded to this survey of ours, that included both community-based organizations, but also non-Title I schools and public charter schools. Our main there were 180 providers that responded to our survey. I think our top level highlights, we can say that most OST providers had been in operation for long periods of time, many of them over 10 years, and most of them operate within a single ward. Most OST programs were offered 5 or more times per week, around 2 to 4 hours a day. That reflects that the most programming was in after-school programming. And when OST providers are reaching out to families, they often use school meetings, their websites, and social media. The majority of providers did work with at-risk students and special populations, such as students with disabilities. CBOs were more likely to have bilingual staff as compared to programs organized at schools, and the most common language was Spanish. And programs organized by schools were more likely to have behavioral support services as compared to the CBOs. We have some interesting data on program focus. Academic programming was most focused in wards 8, followed by 5 and 7. Arts and STEM were also heavily focused in those wards. And sports, college readiness, and career readiness were more spread out throughout the city. I'm gonna leave that alone for now. Main concerns that providers expressed, one was staffing, especially due to delayed clearances from background clearances that have been taking longer. I know there's been legislation to help lessen that, so hopefully that solves some of those concerns. They also cited less interest in part-time work and the need to increase wages to keep salaries competitive. In addition, many providers had trouble with funding, either acquiring funds at the right time. Some people said that their programs would start before they received grant money, or trouble securing space for their programming. Rising costs were a concern, including inflation, Insurance costs, including cybersecurity, was something that came up more than once, and salaries. Many providers talked about variable enrollment and attendance, which I think goes hand in hand with what we've been seeing in schools with the increased truancy and then the need to quarantine for various COVID concerns. And finally, providers mentioned that there were differing needs of the students, including a lot of emotional support, economic hardship, academic support, and the need for direct services such as food or clothing. The response we got from parents and guardians. Again, we did a listening session with PAVE parents, and PAVE also administered 2 surveys, one in English and one in Spanish. Some interesting things that came out of that. Basically, all income groups had access to OST programming. It was highest for incomes over 100K. And when asked about, why parents were not participating in OST programming, the most common reason was that it was too expensive, followed by transportation. Programs were hard to get to or they couldn't find information. When you look at this by area, transportation too far away, conflicts with work schedules are all concentrated in Ward 8. Too expensive was concentrated in Ward 5, and then couldn't meet special needs of students, which could include disabilities or English learners, was most concentrated in Ward 4. And just kind of another interesting note here, we asked why parents were participating in OST programming. By far, the greatest response was social or emotional development, although the income group that was highest for was households who made in between 100 and 150,000 per year. Whereas for lower income households that are making under $50,000, overwhelmingly their reason for participating in OST programming was that it kept kids safe. So just very interesting there. And then the most commonly mentioned parent concerns were transportation, affordability, and information, specifically about how to find and enroll in programs. And this was particularly important for parents that were trying to find specific information, such as disability services or bilingual staff. So in terms of recommendations, we recommend collecting standardized data about OST programs provided by district government. This is actually quite related to the news from the budget with the My After School DC program. Collecting information on OST programs by private providers, so we have a sense of what the full universe of OST programming is, and coordinating with OSSI to better understand the role of licensed child development centers in OST programming. Additionally, we think it's worth studying OST provider costs, financing, and pricing models to see what financial constraints there are, looking at participation constraints for families and youth to see what stops families from participating in OST programming and what can be done about it. And in particular, focusing on what challenges are being faced by groups that might need additional care or special accommodations, such as English learners or students with disabilities. Also developing quality and effectiveness benchmarks and monitoring the bottlenecks from the staff background clearance process. And then finally, we recommend improving communication about OST programming and services. We know that the district and the OST office operates a lot of really high quality programs, and there's so many of them, and people don't necessarily know what exists out there. So finding ways to increase communication about that would be great, and engaging families in that as well, potentially through schools or events, or again, like online portals such as the new My After School DC program. So happy to take any questions. And I know I went through that very quickly, but we will talk about this again, I promise.
Thank you so much, Amelia. We do have, we are getting low on time, so we're going to leave our questions or commentary to 5 minutes. So any questions, commentary based on what Amelia shared?
Yes, Commissioner Hill, I had a really quick question. I just found it interesting regarding the providers' concerns. It wasn't mentioned in your report, the uptick in violence that's taking place in our neighborhoods and communities, particularly in Ward 7 and 8, where the rash of shootings are taking place more prominent than other areas. I just found that was interesting that the providers, because I'm talking to a lot of providers where youth are not feeling safe in the communities, period, and they're not coming to participate as much as they used to in some of our programming for after-school programming.
Thank you for sharing, Commissioner Hill. And any other thoughts before we move on?
So just a
Yeah, this
reflection on.
is Commissioner Siegel. I'm hoping that we can have time to review the report and then perhaps have an informal conversation where we can have more of these conversations, because there's so much amazing material in there. And I just want to sit and read the whole report and then ask questions afterward. But thank you. What an incredible job. And I really do hope that we can have some full conversation about the questions raised in the report and the recommendations.
Thank you so much.
Any other commentary? So as was mentioned prior, once it is made public, we will schedule a lean-in session for the needs assessment. So you have time to kind of sit, read, marinate on it, process it, and then come to that event well-equipped and well-informed with what the findings, recommendations are from the needs assessment. So please stay tuned. You will be one of the first to know once that session has been scheduled in partnership with the DC Policy Center. Thank you so much, Emilia and Nick, for being here and sharing out with the OST Commission. You guys are appreciated. And also Yashin in her absence. Thank you, guys. Okay, so we're going to continue on with our meeting agenda. The next thing in line, once Alex pulls up the screen, is, thank you for sharing that in the chat, Commissioner Hill, is the OST strategic plan. I'll say this as a quick note. We will email this to you post-meeting, so you have it. You can sit with it, read it through, and if you are in one of the committees, work through the results of the the strategic plan, because it is in draft form right now. Do you have the document to share, Alex?
Yes, give me 1 second, sorry.
No problem. So as a quick caveat to this is its draft form. This is only for the commission and the committee members. Right now, it is going to be commissioner facing, and it's an opportunity for you all to give commentary, to look at it critically. This is your chance before we make it public for public commentary to give your critical and constructive feedback on the strategic plan for the OST office as we look ahead towards the subsequent fiscal years. So Alex, if you can please scroll for me down to page, give me 1 second. Page 5, thank you. Page 5, and then we're gonna go from there. So on page 5, go to the want to get the context first. And again, this will be emailed to you all in confidence for you guys to look critically at it individually and also as a part of your, Alex, this is not what I emailed you, Alex.
Sorry, let me give 1 second.
So what will be shared to you guys shortly is the draft plan. what we are asking from the commissioners and the committees is to really think through, okay, based on what you've heard from the needs assessment, based on what the findings and recommendations are, what you know to be true from your work in partnership with OST, is our plan aligned to the priorities for the OST office? Are the committee's plans aligned with our priorities for the OST office? If they are, great. If they are not, this is your opportunity and your chance to provide commentary so that we can then update our strategic plan prior to us making it public facing for public commentary. And so in a short moment, and also please note that we have taken into consideration the extensive needs assessment as we put together this draft strategy plan for you all to look critically at and to constructively criticize. So we know from here on up until 2025 what our priorities are, what our priorities should be, and they are and ensuring that they are aligning as an OST office. Any further assistance needed, Alex?
I'm just talking on my multiple screens trying to get to a document. Just give me 1 second.
I'll share copy. Just put it in our chat if you need it. Okay. So as we wait for that to come up, again, I'm going to underscore this. Please, if you are a commissioner, please nominate someone to serve as a co-chair. Here's a commitment. Typically, prior to every OST commission meeting, myself, Katrina, and the chair meets the Wednesday before the OST commission meeting. There's no other, generally speaking, commitment beyond that. We meet for 30 minutes on a Wednesday prior to the Thursday commission meeting, and I walk you through the presentation. You don't have to create anything. You don't have to draft anything from scratch. I give you the presentation, I walk you through the language, and then you present it during our OST commission meetings. So please, we do need a nomination from our current commission members for our next chair to work with Commissioner Peacock as the chairs for the OST commission. Please nominate from our current commissions list. Any? Okay, so what I'll do is let me just, you got it, Alex, or do I need to pull up my screen? Okay, let me share my screen since we are experiencing a little bit of technical challenges. Okay, so can everyone see my screen confirm? I can't see you guys. If someone can just tell me yes, that'll be appreciated.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We see it, but if you could close the navigation panel on the left,
Does that
it might be
help?
larger.
I'll
Thank
zoom
you.
it in. Okay, so
Better.
great. So what I'll do is this. So our goal for this strategy plan is to really lean into grant making, lean into capacity building, and lean into the professional growth and development of our OST staff. So my team, our OST team, and our service providers. And so we will do that by way of increasing access to OST, so that there are no limitations, whether it's geographically, linguistically, ability-wise, etc. Promoting inclusion within our office and through our grant making, and then minimizing any barriers that our kids and our youth have as relates to OST. And so we have used the needs assessment. So we have an annual needs assessment that to help guide and inform our plan, but it's not the be all and end all and driver of our needs assessment, but it does inform the needs assessment, sorry, the strategic plan. This document will be sent to you guys post-meeting. Our priorities right now as an office are four. One, quality assurance, ensuring our quality staff and programming for our kids. Not only quality staff for OST program, but quality staff for our OST office as well. And we have a spectacular team on board, sans one who we are currently in the process of hiring for. Our other priority is equity through inclusivity, expanding through funding that prioritizes access for our kids and our youth across the district, operationalizing the OST office, and that is by way of a centralized grants management system, by way of My After School DC as a one-stop shop for our families, etc. And lastly, but certainly not least, professionalizing and growing the OST office by way of branding, by way of our staff, by way of our providers, giving them the training, the support, the funds they need, the infrastructure they need to be a well-oiled OST machine. And so we have these four roadmap buckets align with the quality assurance, equity, operationalization of the office, and professionalization, and they are gone into in greater detail. We will send this document to you post-meeting so you can sit with it and read it through. But for quality assurance, we're going to make sure that we require trainings across our grant competitions to ensure that our after-school providers have to ensure that our after-school programs are accessible for all students, inclusive of students with disabilities, IEPs, etc., improve and expand OST provider trainings, and ensure continuous improvement by way of evaluation of our providers. 2, relates specifically to equity through inclusivity by way of our commitment to expanding access to OST programs for students. So we're calling it out specifically. OST, access to OST programs for students with disabilities, RL students, or students with IEPs, students in areas that are traditionally geographically underserved, etc. And we have priority wards, priority populations, priority competitions, in addition to what we currently do as an office. The third bucket is operationalizing the OST office by way of a centralized RFA grants management system, rolling out an online application by way of quote-unquote My After School DC, facilitating, which we've already begun the process of, facilitating cross-agency collaboration with other OST providers, and also having events to promote cross-collaboration. We already have summer in the city as a pilot. Our goal is to have after school in the city, My After School DC, because we want to make sure that we have after school for all across the district. Then we have the operationalization of the My After School After School for All by way of My After School DC, etc. Then the last thing is professionalization of the OST office by promoting trainings, the development and growth, and staff retention of the OST team. That is super important to maintain sustainability, expanding and improving upon the brand of the Learn24 network, and the ongoing evaluation of our youth outcomes by the varying committees coming out of the OST Commission. Here, I've also included the work from each of the Commission's committees, funding and capacity building, quality, outcomes, and coordination and collaboration. You will see what each committee has laid out for us. Once we're sending this document, we ask you to do a couple of things. So we have funding and capacity building who has shared I'm not going to go over this because we're for the interest of time. So they have shared what they have mapped out by way of funding and capacity building. We also have quality, outcomes, and then coordination and collaboration. Alex, please, for the slides that we have, can you go to the slide about what's next for the OST, for the strategic plan? That should be slide 21. Thank you. So on slide 21, here's what our call to you is as the OST Commission. We are asking you, share your screen, please. We're asking you guys to, once we send you this document, to review the draft plan. These are the guiding questions we have for you, and we will include these questions in our email to you all. Are these the right OST priorities? Are the priorities specific and concrete enough? Or are they too vague and ambiguous or abstract? Are the strategies and activities for each OST Commission committee aligned with the OST priorities? So in summation, is there cohesion or is it piecemeal? And this is the OST Commission's opportunity, and please note this is not public facing as yet, so please do not distribute it. This is your opportunity to provide us commentary, critical and constructive commentary on the strategic plan before we make it public, public facing. Any questions? I know that was really quick, but like I said, we will email these the documents to you as well as the deliberation questions. Okay, move on, Alex, to the next slide. Thank you. So this is a reminder of the timeline. We will have you guys review and comment on the plan. We will then have you guys approve, hopefully, in May for it to go for public commentary. And then public commentary will be up until June. A quick note, initially we wanted it to go for public commentary in the March meeting, but because of the delay in some various deliverables, we had to move it to start public commentary in May. Are there any disagreements with this timeline shift? I wanted to make sure that it gets in front of the commission first before we make it public for commentary. And the month will have the public, will have between, providing that we do get approval from you all in May, up until June to provide us commentary so we can then update and present to you all for finalization. Next slide. Commission update. So now we will, if there are any, for the commission update specifically, please, if you are interested in serving as a co-chair, let myself know or Alex, and he will share that with me. The biggest lift is that the day before the commission meeting, I sit with you and walk you through the slides. I create the slides and I give them to you. I give you the language to use as you lead the meetings in partnership with Chair Peacock, and then we meet every other month as a commission. If you have nominees, there must be a current OST commission member. Please share those with me because we are in need of a supporting chair for Chair Peacock. Alice, please put that link into the chat for those who want, and also those who are interested in applying to the commission. He'll put the link in the chat so people can apply. We did have one application for the commission, and that individual is currently going through the vetting process. Once I get more clarity on the individual and their status, I will share with you all regarding that applicant to be a part of the OST commission. But please send any at all nominees for the co-chair position to me or to Alex directly. Now we're going to have any quick updates from the next slide, please. Each committee, and my apologies that we're going over. So let us, if there are any updates from your committee, please let us know. We are going to start with the next slide with coordination and collaboration. Any updates from the coordination and collaboration team?
No major updates from the coordination and collaboration team at the moment.
Thank you, Alex. Next slide, we have the funding and capacity building.
This is Katrina. I'm not sure if Commissioner Harrell or Commissioner Crump have any updates. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we got a few updates. Thank you so much, Dr. Lowe, and really excited about the upcoming summer in the city. As you can see, I'm already got my swag on, little hat. Yeah, appreciate y'all. And Commissioner Crump is also co-chair, and she is on the line, and she's going to also follow in with a few updates. We last met in February 27th, and we were happy to be with government representatives, Katrina and Kamintha. Kamintha was also there on that meeting with other committee members. Ms. Carter, Jackie Carter, who is our guest today, she's also listening in on this particular meeting, and she sits with us with that team in that meeting environment. So yeah, we're excited that we were able to submit the strategic plan over to you guys last week through Katrina, and we're certainly also looking forward to digging back in to take another look at the draft that has been completed. Look like you've given us a lot of work there, and some things that we really wanted to talk about and finalize. I'm not going to go into detail with those things, but some of the major topic discussions that we had with our team, and one of them was the committee is recommending that the Learn 24 also give priority points to east of the river LGBTQ, as well as special populations that are serving, again, Ward 7 and 8, and we're looking forward to hopefully allowing that to be part of the RFPs that are coming out in 2024 and beyond. And I listened to the data from the representative this evening, and it's still a great amount of disparities in Ward 7 and 8. One of the other topics we had, we wanted to make sure that the organizations that submit for OST funding have authentic ties. Our committee was really strong in the desire that the communities, these organizations are eligible to receive hopefully priority points, and the organization's addresses and mission statements must reflect these activities as identified on their previous 990s. So also the committee recommended the Learn 24 offer a capacity building grant we were concerned about in 2024. And I know that Dr. Lowe, you mentioned some $3 million, which has been allocated out of the $5 million that the mayor has appropriated for FY24. And possibly we have a list of things that we would also, from our committee, like for to be considered, possibly with the new, those extra dollars or whatever from that $5 million from the mayor's office. With regard to, and Commissioner Crump can help me with the ELL language access and an opportunity to review the ELL language access. I'm gonna pause just for a second. I don't know if Crump, you want to Commissioner want to jump in? Is she still there?
Yes, I'm still here. So in regards to the ELL access, one of the recommendations that we had based off of the needs assessment, and in addition to like Ward 7 and Ward 8. And we're gonna flush that out and provide a recommendation to Learn 24 in regards to that. So I would say that would be the update on that. You want me to give the next update, or are you gonna keep going?
I'm gonna go back and then you can come with the next one. I skipped one of the other considerations that our committee had, and that was for the OST office to revisit the opportunity for providers to use grant dollars to buy food and beverages for the youth that are coming into the programs in the after school. We're finding particularly again, in these disparities in Ward 7 and 8, and youth and kids are coming in hungry and after school, and a lot of them don't have food to eat at home, or it's just a lot of consideration with regard to making those funds allowable for youth to be able to eat. So thank you so much. Commissioner Crump still has a few follow-up updates as well.
Yes, so the other update was in regards, and I think part of it was hit on with the presentation. So again, thanks for that presentation. I guess the other major update that we have or recommendation that we have is in regards to how funding is allocated to organizations and making sure that we're being equitable. I know Commissioner Hill talked earlier, and we're not speaking about things that are embargoed, but even with like previous applications, a lot has changed. It's been a transition, and organizations are really confused on how funding dollars are allocated. For instance, I know in the previous RFP, the one for school year, if you received a certain amount of points, you received full funding. If you received, I believe it was like 80 points between 60, it was some number, you received 75% funding for school year and for year round. And one of the concerns is, as we're building out our equity plan, especially with small nonprofits, they might not have full-time grant writers. So in the past, previous like years ago, the first two or 3 years of Learn 24, if you received over a certain number or a certain score, you received your full funding amount. And at some point in the last 2 years, that's changed. And that can cause issues in equity because organizations that don't have full-time grant writers may receive less funding, even though that their program is still a quality program. So we're recommending that Learn 24 look at ways that we can maybe use evaluations and other resources outside of just how well you score on a proposal to how funding is distributed. And I had a question similar to, I didn't want to cut into the conversation earlier because it was all good information, but I had a question similar to Commissioner Hill's earlier, in which we didn't know if funding was being distributed in that way because of the budget and that there wasn't enough funding. So funding was being like distributed where you get 75% or whatever, because it's been changing. It's changed like every RFP. So like school year was different. The summer before that was different. And organizations are confused. So they're planning their programs based off of receiving certain funds. And we just want to, one, figure out why is that happening. So if it's happening because we only have 4 million and we had $4.5 million worth of funds, then can we find other ways to then maybe make it equitable, especially for small nonprofits who are only applying for 25,000. So if they receive a decrease because they scored 2 points lower than another organization, and they receive a decrease of $5,000, that is very, that can be very harmful, especially for those smaller organizations who don't have grant writers. So we just want Learn 24 and us as a subcommittee too to just consider that as we're moving into 2024 to find more equitable ways of funding distributions. Because we know we're still within our committee, we're even still working on ways to improve the grant making process in terms of like grant reviewers and making sure that everything is equitable. So we just want to make sure that's looked at moving forward. And then finally, because I know we're short on time, we want to also look at ways and get a better understanding of how we can streamline the application process, especially for people reapplying for funding, like year-round funding, them having to go back through the cycle of school year in summer instead of being able to reapply for year-round funding once that 3 or 4 year period is up. So those are our major recommendations. I don't know if I'm missing anything, but Commissioner Hill, if I am, you can chime in.
Yeah, the only other thing, just really quickly, we were happy to meet with the coordination and collaboration committee last month, and we were appreciative to Alex and the other commissioners and that team for having that conversation with us. And we did talk about next steps for continued conversation with that committee. Yeah, so I think Commissioner Crump, that concludes. And the other thing, we don't know, we were talking earlier, when we ask these questions, we don't know who's going to answer them.
Thank you for bringing the questions up. Before we go on to the next committee's update, I want to address one thing, and please, this is your opportunity. Once you get the plan, to please criticize it, be constructive, because we want this feedback is super helpful. Number one, we are standardizing the review process, hence the allocation metrics that have been established. I hear you, Commissioner Crump, about using the lens of equity for how funding is allocated, but we want to make sure that, like you said, from year to year it has changed, and now we are working towards standardizing it so that applicants know what to expect as we move forward. So that's part of the change process. Additionally, summer is typically more competitive and also more expensive. Our office has grown exponentially in the past 2 years, and so it is competitive. We have almost $6 million requested, and we had approximately 3.3 million, I don't know the exact number, to allocate, and so we had to think critically about how we would assess applicants. But I hear you around perhaps an evaluation of current performance, etc., were being considered as a part of the process, and I'm sure Shannon and her team has heard you and will take action on that. And so, with that, so we've got an ask of $6+ million, and we only have a budget of $3+ million. So that means that a lot of what is being asked for has not been allocated. But I heard you, and please, once you get a strategic plan, think critically about how we can use equity as a driver as we move forward. We're now going to move on to the next slide. My apologies for going over time. Quality, any updates?
I do have a couple of very quick updates, I guess. We've had a couple of meetings of the Quality Committee, one on February 21st to really take a look at the initial draft of the needs assessment and determine whether there were areas of it that really had implications for the quality work. And then we forwarded on some questions related to that to the Policy Center through, I guess, the office. And we met again on March 7th to look at the strategic plan again with that needs assessment in mind and really hone in on specific areas that we thought we wanted to make sure were addressed in the strategic plan in terms of like the overarching tasks there. We haven't gotten into the specific strategies yet that are used to address those aspects of the overall goals in the plan, but we did make a couple of changes. I mean, one of them has been discussed in previous meetings, that we want to remove that first thing that exists in the current strategic plan, which was to define quality, because that had already been done. But we also wanted to readjust, like reposition the priority levels in a way of some of the other items in the goal statement. So we've done that work. We forwarded it on to you, Dr. Lowe, for incorporation into updates to the plan. And we look forward to reviewing all of that. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, April 11th from 1 to 2. And we probably will either be looking more deeply at the needs assessment, if that's available, or going into some of the strategies that align to the goals of the different sections of the plan. We've had a member join our group in recent meetings, and that's Peter Gutmacher, who some folks in the OST world will probably remember. He was very active at the Trust as a trainer, very well-informed, really a specialist in the quality assessment measures, the Weichart system. And so it's helpful to have his prior knowledge of work of the city in this area, and also have that deep knowledge of the Weichart system as we look to making sure that we're assessing the program quality effectively and making use of that data. So he's a recent member of our committee who's attended several meetings at this point. So just want to let you know about that. And that's all.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Berkey. Next slide. We're wrapping up, guys. Which is my committee, so the outcomes and needs assessment. As you guys, we've worked really close with the DC Policy Center to get it up to speed. It's not their first time presenting at the commission, so we appreciate them from being here. I worked with my subcommittee to update our portion of the needs of the strategic plan. Sorry, mixing up the names. And now we're going to look towards making sure that there's alignment with our priorities, and also if our priorities need to be kind of like updated. So please take that into consideration as you look critically at the plan. We meet every month, and so our next meeting will be focused primarily and singularly on making sure that there is alignment between our portion of the plan with the OST office's priorities and updating if needed. Next slide, Alice. And so our next meeting is going to be on May 25th. So by then, well, prior to then, we're going to ask that each commissioner have their commentary in place. Alex will be forwarding you guys a link for that commentary to be dropped in, so we can take it into consideration as we kind of draft and finalize the plan. This will all be forthcoming via an email with all the information that you need as you look critically at the strategic plan. Our next meeting is slated for May 25th at 6, same time, same place. Next slide. And so our next steps, strategic plan. Please, look at it when you receive it in your inbox and use a critical eye, because this is it. Once we set it in stone, this is what we're going to be using as a roadmap for the next 3 years for the OST office. So please feel free to, give your feedback, your commentary, so we can finalize this to make it public facing. Next slide, please. Next meeting is May 25th, and we are virtual until further notice. And the final slide for today is for us. Final slide, Alex. Thank you. Is to close out today's meeting. Thank you all for your patience and for staying on. So are there any additional business or commentaries that I missed for today's meeting? May I then have a motion to adjourn today's meeting from a commissioner?
This is Commissioner Saffron. I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you so much. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Crump, I second.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Crump and Commissioner Saffron. Vote will be taken. Sorry. Second, thank you. Is there any discussion? My apologies. I'm trying to keep track. Those who approve the adjournment, please say aye.
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 Thank you so much. We should do this. Let me do it opposite. Is there anyone who opposes us adjourning from the commission? So we're assuming that there's a blanket approval of us adjourning. Thank you guys again so much. Look out for an email communication from us. We are adjourned for tonight. We'll see you guys in May. OST team, hold on. Actually, OST team, please join the invite you just received.